What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on D's Analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR today, Bitcoin, and a couple different charts. So you can see we've been riding up our trend line, looking pretty good. We are finding support off of this golden zone at the moment. We haven't fallen through yet. We ended up getting a close back inside of it as we started this past week back above it, and now we're back inside. So we'll see if we can actually trend sideways into this trend line before maybe finding a move up. We do have a pretty important day on Thursday, as you can see here, earnings and revenue. So we'll see how things play out. We'll see if we get some kind of spike in price. Right now, volume kind of has been down a little bit. As you can see, if I draw this white line here, you can see where the average volume has kind of been sitting around. This week, our volume was sitting at 62 million, and you can see over here we're getting 134, 110, 50, 70, 88, and so on. You can kind of see the trend there, but we are playing underneath this line right here in terms of volume, and it looks like we might be coming back for a retest of this downward sloping trend line that we have established here. Daily SMAs, you can see that we fell underneath the 20, retested, and I was saying that we could potentially touch the 50, and it looks like we got pretty close. We'll see if we end up touching it next week. And on the 4-hour, you can see that we have fallen underneath our 50, so this is going to open up the idea of us pushing down a little bit further, but at the end of the day, we can always revert back above the 50 and get a bounce higher. We also were saying if we fell underneath 412, that we could see 400, and we essentially did. I mean, we missed it by $2, but we fell underneath 412, and I'm sorry, 412 up here. So I was saying if we fall underneath 412 and get a close, so we hold that structure, then it's going to increase the likelihood of us retesting and making it down to 400. And we made it to 402.18, so we're off by $2. We'll see if the next trading day touches it or not. It doesn't have to. Hopefully it turns back around and starts ramping up in anticipation of earnings. We'll see, of course. Now on the fib, we actually are at the 0.5 to the 618. Like I said, this is a key zone. The 0.5 to 618 is the magnet for these retracements. So we were talking about the 0.5 to 618 when we were over here, saying maybe we touch it, maybe we just sit at the 382. But like I said, 0.5 to 618 tends to be that magnet for some kind of retracement, and that's exactly what happened. Now, if we can get a bounce off of the structure and we don't fall underneath it, that's going to increase the likelihood of us bouncing and pushing up higher. On BTC, you can see we're struggling here. We had our push up and we got rejected off of it. We tried pushing up again and got rejected once again. When you look here on the daily, it looks like we're getting some kind of double top potentially starting to form. As we can see, kind of have like one peak here, and we had a push down here, and then we created that lower high, and then we had that move there. And what we were saying was if we get a close underneath this structure, this is going to open up the likelihood of us retesting this zone and potentially making it to this next zone here. But we did not get a close here. We got a rejection and we pushed right back above. So it's almost as if nothing even happened. Now it'll be the same thing once we get to this zone here. If we fall underneath here and get a close, then that's going to open up the likelihood of us making it down here. So the same thing remains. If we end up pushing back down, getting a close, retest, it's going to open up the chances of us touching that 110 to 111 mark. So keep that in the back of your mind and make sure you're aware of that. On the daily SMAs, we did find a nice bounce off of the 20-day SMA. It's a key level that we want to see hold, especially in this bull trend. It looks like the bull flag is playing out pretty well. We are just going sideways, creating a nice flag pattern or pennant, whichever one you want to say. Depends on how you draw it. It could be something like that, or you could pull it from over here and have something more like that. Either way, it's a bullish sign. And as you can see, if you pull from there and you take this over here, connect it, and you sit at around 127 to around 128, could be a little bit higher, but it is looking pretty bullish, although the sentiment is kind of bearish. We do have to take a second and realize that sentiment is bad right now around Bitcoin for some reason, or just in general. And look where we're sitting. We're sitting at 117. We're not at 50,000. We're not at 70,000. We're not at 80. Sitting at 117. And the previous all-time highs was 123. We're 4% off of all-time highs. And the sentiment is just not good. That makes me believe that we are probably going to go higher just based off of sentiment purposes. And when you take a look at global liquidity, it looks like we still have another leg or two, maybe, depending on where we're at in this move. So this could be a more prolonged move to the upside before we see some kind of downside. Right now, global liquidity is taking a little downtrend, a breather, before potentially pushing back up higher and continuing the trend. We are getting a nice move up here on Tether Dominance. It pushed all the way back up, and we found rejection, which is nice for Bitcoin. As this pushed up, that's how we saw that that short spike that we saw on Bitcoin. It was based off of this move here. It was just retesting this key level after having a couple retests here. Maybe we get our final retest here and then continue the move down. And when you look at the fib here, you can see it's bouncing off the 382 from this move here. So pretty much all that matters is to the right of this move. So this is a very, very bearish continuation of the trend. So if we can hold this and continue to make fresh lows, it's going to be a very, very strong move where we can potentially make it to that 3.9. And we also pushed all the way up to the 20-day SMA and found rejection. So it was confluence with this key level of resistance with the 20 SMA right here. Also, when we take a look at the dollar, you can see that we are at the bottom of this channel. So there's a strong chance that we could get a bounce here, but the trend still remains pretty bearish off of this leg here. But like I said, on this long-term trend, we found bounces off of this key level. We are at that point right now. But like I said, on a smaller time frame, you can see it looks pretty bearish. It does look like we kind of broke out, but we'll see if it ends up falling back underneath and we lose this entire structure, or if we end up getting that bounce and we see a spike in the dollar, which could potentially create some weakness for Bitcoin, but nothing's ever guaranteed because Bitcoin can rally while the dollar goes up and Bitcoin can rally while the dollar goes down. But typically they're inversely correlated, but it's not always the case. So keep that in mind. But the dollar does have some resistance above its head here at the 20-week SMA, sitting at 99.8. And here on the daily, we have resistance above our head as well on the 20-day. We just closed back above it. But we'll see if we can hold it because this is a pretty bearish move at the moment. We'll see if it continues that move downward and we see the bottom of this upward sloping trend line. When you take a look at the total crypto market cap, you can see after we get our downfall, we have this accumulation phase, then a run up, our downfall, accumulation phase, and potentially a run up. We'll see if we make it to the top of this channel. If we do, that would take the entire market cap to around 10 to 12 trillion, which is hard to see, but hey, we've seen crazier things. But yeah, that would be a pretty significant move if we make it all the way up. And then I would imagine if we make it all the way up there, it's going to be a very severe crash. And then we repeat the cycle. Yeah, I just want to make a short video. I'm pretty busy today, so I wanted to get something out for you guys. Make sure you guys drop a like and subscribe on these videos. It always helps with the algorithm. And I'll see you guys in the next one.